Welcome to this week's Forum Views with Daniel Downey, myself, and
Sheila Reilly.
And we have Joe McAtackney on as our guest this week, and we've gone through a few topics from the papers this week, thanks to the Anglo-Celt, the Irish Times and Irish Independent. So, Joe, we'll just have a wee introduction here. And do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, I'm originally from Belfast, but living in Cavan now 32 years.
Yeah.
So I'm almost regarded as a local.
Almost.
You've got another 10 years to go, I think,
yeah.
Joe.
I remember when I first arrived, I was told you have to be here 2 generations to be regarded as a local.
I know.
Oh, really?
I'm still blowing.
2 generations.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
I know, I think they've reduced the criteria since they were a bit more accepting. We are a bit more accepting.
Yeah, they're desperate for people now. So they'll just lower
they
the
take
mark.
good people, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show, and hopefully we'll have a few interesting topics for us to chat about.
Indeed.
So, talking about good luck with the show, well, what's our
starting
first?
off with really good luck.
Really
and
fantastic
this
good luck.
Cavans Luke Sexton winning 2.9 million in the lotto. It was such an exciting story on the front of the Celts this week. There's a cool hand Luke, great heading.
Lotto win.
Scoops Lotto win. And it's just such a lovely story. He realised he won the lotto at work, and he just went back to work and wanted to wait till he told his mother. And his mother was the first person he.
But he's a Cavan man.
Is it true?
He's earning
back to work to make more money.
More money.
No, it's such a great story though, isn't it? What would you do with 2.9 million, Joe?
2.9 million. Under the mattress. You couldn't put it in the bank.
You wouldn't trust the bank. You could probably buy a bank with it for this in this day and age.
Yeah, quite possible. Yeah.
I wonder, like, we should get Paul in here and talk about how is it to work with a millionaire for a day. You know,
honest to God. Do people treat him differently at work?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure they don't.
Lunch is on him, and there's a copy of the cheque there. That's very nice.
It's
Bank of Ireland.
Oh
no,
useless.
I want to check that one.
It's worthless.
Well, it was lovely,
worse.
and it was great to see. There's a lovely picture in the front of the paper with all his family and everybody outside the door of the house, wasn't it? It was great. It was really positive, feel-good story to start the week, just what you want.
Brilliant.
Wouldn't you feel very nervous if it was an Anglo-Irish
Oh, definitely.
check?
Oh, God, yeah.
And it was presented to you?
I definitely would.
You think twice?
Yeah.
It's really Monopoly.
Well, also in the paper this week, on a positive note, again, the Stripes play at BB King movie premiere, and brilliant, a local Cavan band getting to play at the launch of a major international movie. The Stripes really are.
Oh, they're on the up. I mean, it's fantastic. Mick Jagger and Bono are allegedly going to attend this, or supposed to be attending this event. It's, imagine, it's just incredible, really, the type of momentum that they're building up. It's fantastic to see.
4 young fellas, rubbing shoulders with the.
But they know their music. Like, they're seriously good. You know, they know their stuff. They're working their asses off.
Well, I've lost touch with the pop scene, but the
local element is good though.
It's very good. Yeah,
it's amazing to see. Like, they're only teenagers, really. It's amazing to see them kind of doing.
But they very model themselves on the Beatles, you know, and they do have that kind of.
Well, the Beatles did have a certain degree of success, so you can't really blame them for that.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Oasis copied the Beatles as well. And, you know,
well, they're seriously talented guys. I remember seeing an interview with them in the Times maybe about 6 months ago now, and like the interviewer was clearly blown away with them by their music knowledge, and he was really kind of blowing them up, which they wouldn't be doing for a band like that usually. You know, it was kind of. You knew that they kind of came down, that the guy came down to Cavan to take the mick, but actually he was totally blown away by them. So I think after that they have really, you know, they kind of were establishing their genuine musical credentials early on. So
Brilliant.
That's what we want to see.
So, well, I mean, it's successful marketing. So, I'm talking about marketing. County Cavan is rebranding itself as This is Cavan to boost tourism in the county. What do you think of...
Well, can we go back to the picture of Jack Keys and the Taoiseach, because taken by Lorraine Teven, great photographer.
Fantastic.
But like, seriously, Enda, it's not a good look. It's just not a good look. Jack Keys, he gets away with it. But Enda just looks like he's down from the mountain or something. So.
You know,
is this Cavan?
The thing
is, it's Cavan!
But the thing with Enda Kenny is he always, I think he's never left behind that school teacher element of a school teacher trying to look cool for the students. You know, that doesn't quite pull it off. And What do you think?
Yeah, he comes across that all the time. He's very camera shy, very nervous in front of the camera, I think. And he just can't. He should have taken lessons. But
Well, he probably has, Joe.
Well, he should have taken better lessons.
Yeah.
He should have went to the right people.
Yeah.
You know, knowing how to sort of.
Well,
he still comes across as just that wooden kind of
cringy
Yes.
wooden
Yeah.
person.
From
Yeah.
He's
The
on
man-
front of,
the
he's
man
on
from
front of
Mayo,
Time
you know.
magazine this
Yeah,
week,
that's kind of.
which is enough to make me want to climb in under this couch now. The Celtic
well-
comeback kid or something.
Well, again on that same note, where he was sitting 3 or 4 feet away from the pub, and on his mobile phone.
Yeah.
You know, which you just don't do things
Totally
like that.
unprofessional.
You know, somebody he should have had a wee phone in his ear and somebody telling him drop the phone.
He needs Dave, like we have Dave
Yeah.
here. He
Yes.
needs Dave in his ear.
Yeah. He needs a Dave, right?
Dave do bar mitzvahs. He'll do anything. Yeah. He'll talk
But
to
bringing
you
us back
anytime.
to the story, do you think rebranding is a way to get investment into the county, or is it?
Well, it's as good as any. It's
Yeah.
any news start, because Cavans always had a name. It's in the sticks. It's
Yeah.
the backwoods. You know.
Yeah.
Even,
I think the flag though
I think
changed a lot
even
of.
Bertie O'Harnock a couple of years ago thought it was in the north.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Do you think the
That's
flag
ridiculous.
changed a lot of perception about
it did. 'Cause it
the town? Well,
give
the
it
town
an
in particular.
international. Because
Yeah.
people came from all over Europe
Yeah.
to the flag over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So now is a good time to.
I think the flag as well
Push
kind of
that
gave
image.
local people, it kind of made them realise what a nice town Cavan was, if you know what I mean, and all
Yeah.
that Cavan had to offer, kind of when they seen other people coming to it and appreciating it a bit.
Well,
It's,
actually,
you know-
I've noticed that when I first came to Cavan, it was a bit of a drab town.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last 10, 12 years, it really has come on leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
The new shop fronts, you know, the town cleaned up all the flower beds.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the whole town has been, and it's not just was just for the flower.
No, it's been an ongoing
It's
project.
been an ongoing
Mm.
process.
Mhm.
I think it was started by, like it was the county manager.
Brian Johnson.
No,
Yeah.
before Brian
Oh,
Johnson.
yeah.
Mackey.
Oh yes, right.
He started the process off, so and Brian Johnson carried it on after
Yeah.
him. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, well, Jack Keys really deserves a lot of credit for the work
Yeah.
he's done. As
Oh,
a man-
yes,
for an
yeah.
county manager. Gosh, he really
But
well,
has.
he's just
Speaking of
continued
the-
the process, you know, and accelerated it. You know,
But
so.
speaking of the branding of the county, we kind of brings us on to kind of our next story,
Yes.
the accidental misbranding or leaving out of huge chunks of
Unbelievable.
Cavan in the map. We can see from the map here that, for example,
Class.
Kingscourt is missing, Arva's missing, Black Lion's missing. Actually, everything beyond Bon Boy, there is nothing there. Or White. Everything.
Insert your
Yeah,
own
yeah.
joke here.
Yeah, everything
At this
east
point.
east of Ballybor doesn't exist
Yeah.
anymore.
But in,
Maybe
in,
there's-
in on a good point, the border is completely gone in that map as
Yeah,
well. So,
yeah.
you know, they've sorted out, they've dealt with partition as well as everything else.
Yeah,
In
Cavan
one
is just
policy.
melted into Northern Ireland.
There's
Yeah.
somebody else who thinks it's part of the north.
Yeah, well, there we have. This would be a theme for the show this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know that? We could run with that.
Yeah, but there is a reason behind it, isn't there? This was a draft one that was accidentally
Yes, yeah.
released.
Oh, yeah. I don't think this is the final. It's good.
Well, I
it's
hope
good.
it's not the final one,
Yeah.
but it was just a draft that was accidentally sent to the publishers instead of the real thing. But again, a huge mistake to make on something you're going to be releasing.
Yeah, it's a major gaffe.
I have to say
Yeah.
fair play to Linda Riley for stepping on the fence between supporting it on the one side and criticising it with a great story on the other.
No, it's excellent.
Uh,
like it is. It's brilliant. Yeah. Oh no,
But,
no. And it's right to highlight it. You know,
yeah.
it's such a stupid gaffe.
Poor old
Yeah.
Kingscourt.
Yes.
We're on to our next story, actually. The Taoiseach, who, again, was in
Look at the
Cavan.
fella though at the back of the photograph. I love this. Like this
The
obviously just
shifty
some
looking lad.
randomer walking. Oh,
Which
there's
shift-
the photo. I'm going to
which
stick
shifty
my head
one?
in. Yeah. He's just
Allegedly
looking what's
shifty.
going on. No, I think it's very. He's great.
He's
yeah.
he's a minder.
He's my hero there. So he's so the
But anyway,
Taoiseach rules
sorry.
out a task force to tackle unemployment in Cavan, emphasising again the branding will attract investment.
Do we need a task force? Should we have a task force in every town in the country?
Not in every
county.
town, no, but I think well, there should be committees. Every town should have a committee anyway.
On unemployment, or particularly focusing on it.
Focusing on
Mm-hmm.
just building up the town,
Yeah.
improving in every town, not just
Mhm.
Cavan. Like,
Yeah.
just to enhance everything about the towns.
Yeah.
I suppose where Enda Kenny is coming from in lots of ways is, you know, you put in a task force. What do they achieve? Kind of, you know, that in a lot of senses that people feel something is being done because there's a task force, but then nothing kind of happens.
Well, I mean, a good thing too. The Tidy Towns competition, for instance, is a good thing because it brings people together in every town. They clean up their towns. They put new things into the towns. All trying to
Run by volunteers as well.
It's all volunteers.
Yeah.
Which is community based.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's paid out of their own pockets.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the way it should. Every town
Yeah.
should start it off,
Mm-hmm.
and if they can get grants to help them enhance it further, all the better.
Yeah.
You know? But,
Yeah.
or outside advice, if there was somebody who could advise, see a town is trying to do something and give them a bit of advice on how to do it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
I know. There is a sense that these task force that you could just be throwing money into a big black hole.
Well, there's plenty of black holes out there to spend money on. And, you know. Yeah. Well, let's go on to the other story about saving money. A slap in the face for West Cavan.
Yes, indeed.
Bus
The
services
buses
being
are
cut.
sitting-
I think it's terrible.
So this is the
terrible
bus
loss
service being
to-
cut in certain towns, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's the main
It's the-
Bon Boy route.
Yeah.
You know, it's that
Yeah.
basically Bon Boy has lost. You know, it's lost its bus route.
Maybe
So
they use the same map as we had on before.
Oh, Bus Éireann are using
Yeah,
the This Is
that's what
Cavan map.
yes.
That
Okay,
explains
yeah,
a lot.
that does
It's
explain
And
a
they
not
lot.
say
there.
there's no joined up thinking.
Yeah.
They're so wrong. They're so wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely.
These people were out
it's-
Point there.
protesting though. They were like, you know, they were making a very valid point that
Yeah.
bus service, particularly that Bon Boy was particularly going to be hit by it.
And fair play to West Cavan folk for getting out there. They do demonstrate either in support of things, like Sean Quinn, for example, in the last few weeks, or against things like cuts in buses. But they do get out there. Fair play to them.
But then
But,
they wouldn't release the figures for, you know, the passenger figures for that route, which I thought, this is Bus Éireann, they wouldn't release that, which I thought was very interesting. You know,
Yeah.
they couldn't
Yeah.
justify why they were cutting
Yeah.
for,
Mm-hmm.
and like, why wouldn't you
Well-
stop in Bon Boy? Like, I mean, I couldn't actually get the logic behind it. I just thought,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's quite a few things to stop in Bon Boy at, you know, and they're putting so much money into Bon Boy as well. With the old workhouse has been completely redone as a prime tourist location.
oh, that's right, yeah.
You know, it's literally tens of thousands have gone into redoing that. It's only just been successfully set up, but nobody can get a bus to it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Jampaling, which is one of the main Buddhist centres in the northwest of Ireland, is it's a Tibetan cultural centre. Nobody can get to it now on the bus, you know, but it's in Bon Boy as well. It just doesn't seem to make
Who
sense.
knew Bon Boy was such a metropolis?
I know.
Not Bus Éireann, apparently.
And has a lovely
Definitely.
has a lovely lake on its outskirts.
Yeah, it's
You
a
know,
lovely place.
It
Alright.
is.
The bottom
I think
line
it
is,
won
should
the-
these places be served?
It won the
No.
Tidy Towns competition once or
Yeah,
twice.
absolutely,
Yeah.
it did. These places should be served by the bus service, which is
Should.
essentially, you know, state funded or part funded. It's
Mhm.
semi state.
It should. Because they're all part of the community,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wider
basically.
community. Like, so a bus should go, say, for instance, from.
Well, a bus is your bridge. That's your
Yeah.
link
Yeah.
between, you know, for a lot of people, it's the key economic bridge between here and there, between
Mhm.
working and not working. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah.
And surely, that's you want to pay your taxes for that. There's other crap you don't want to pay your taxes
Yeah.
for that they use it for, but you live with them paying.
Well, I'd say
You
there's,
support the bus
apart
service.
from Bus Éireann, you know, Cavan Area Rural Transport, the CART,
Yeah,
they do a huge amount of great work in the county. But again, they don't have the resources to take on a major bus route like that.
Yeah,
so
well, that is, well, I think that's Bus Éireann's responsibility. I think
Yeah.
that is the proper networks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You like the CART, they serve a fantastic area on their own. Like they really do great work,
yeah.
and that's a separate entity. And if you start to move them into looking after what bus errands should be looking after. That would mean money will be taken away from the smaller, kind of more parochial routes.
Well, rather than cut the route, what they should do is just cut down the number of buses that are running through the area. But definitely have a bus running from Belturbet to Ballyconnell, or even further on Black Lion, and making the return route back again on a regular basis.
There weren't a huge amount of, like, I think it was 3 or 4 a day, no more than 4 anyway, a day passed through. So it's not.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I understand everything. Look at, you know, nobody's going to be happy when services are cut in their area. That's what, and they're, you know, people are right to get out and protest. You know, like, we'll be seeing a lot more of it.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move on to our national papers, and Dave's probably going to kill me, we're not going to that article, just to talk about the bomb disposal crew that were at St. Pat's. Sheila, this is one that I missed, that you snuck in there.
I did.
Tell me, what is the story?
Basically,
what happened?
The bomb squad was called to local secondary school, which is, as we know, being under great works going on up there at the minute. And when there was a product of some description being moved from the science labs in the old building to the new building, or because of what's going, the building works that are going on, and in the process of moving it, they realised that this stuff was actually very, very dangerous. So they called the bomb squad in. The bomb squad had to come in and sort the whole lot out.
Joe, how do you feel about the bomb squad going into one of your local secondary schools to detonate explosive equipment? You were saying earlier on, you heard it?
I heard it.
Because you were close by.
I was working close by. And
was it a big bang?
Not as big as some have heard before, but
big
enough. It was like quite a large Halloween banger close by. You know, one of these
you knew it was something.
Bomber ones.
But again, you know, it kind of leads to the question of, you know, in a secondary school, should they have the chemicals in a chemistry lab that mixed together
the chemical was known as D4 and Fina something, Drazine. I won't even go there.
What, DNPH?
Yeah, Brady's reagent.
Well, actually, it should have. That was a bit negligent on the part of the science master or whoever had concocted.
Well, we don't know. We have no idea how long it's there or anything. And even in the article, it's not clear how long that is there. From reading the piece, it seemed to me as if it was something that had been there a long time in the school, and it was only in the process of moving out of there.
Yeah, but surely in a science lab in a school,
you'd imagine
you'd regularly,
regularly stock take and see what chemicals you have and what are out of date. I mean, if you're had a chemist shop, you wouldn't have it stocked with chemicals out of date for years, you know.
I'd say they might be having a relook at the whole situation at the minute. What do you think?
Yeah.
But it's led to definitely the best heading this week. Bomb squad called to local secondary school. I can't believe you missed that.
I know, and I wouldn't mind, but I actually, I opened up the back page of the Celt, and time and time again I was like,
and you said,
New Look McDonald's!
McDonald's is real, great! That's exactly what you said.
McDonald's are highly successful. They completely distracted me to think of food while I was doing this during work. Well, look, let's move on to our national stories. Spending on health to be 300 million euros over the annual budget. Joe, you're from. I'm going to ask you a particularly interesting question here. You were originally from Northern Ireland, you're saying, and how do you feel the Southern government is handling its budgets and stuff? Is it just?
It's been a long time since I was in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, but you know, you've lived on the border, so you have a perspective of both, don't you? Or
I think it's far. There's more. It's a far better system in the north. I know from talking to family. And comparing notes. On what I would spend on medicines and so on, and doctors' fees. And they're telling me I should go up there next time I feel ill. It's a lot cheaper. Like, for instance, even I was getting some tablets there 2-3 years ago. And I was paying over €100 for the tablets, and when I mentioned this to the doctor that they're quite expensive, when he was renewing the prescription, I said they're quite expensive. And I said, why don't you get them in the north?
What was the difference?
I was getting 3 months' supply of the tablets for less than the price of 1 month's supply here,
Really?
which
Yeah, I mean, that's outrageous.
yeah.
And you're hearing that all the time, different versions of that story all the time. And indeed, the drug scheme is one of the issues that hasn't been tackled properly by this government, and, you know, the cost of drugs. And I know there's talk about it, but it hasn't happened yet. When you hear stories like that, that's just outrageous.
But again, talking about the budget itself, like, this is a regular occurrence.
300 million
time
over.
again.
But this problem's been it's always been there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to remember this year as well.
Back in the 80s, I remember it was the administration costs then, and they didn't know how they could trim back on the administration, which is where most of the money was being spent.
Yeah. Well, I don't think a lot has changed now. If you think of the HSE at the minute, I think there's about 110,000 people working in it, and there's something like 18 or 14,000 of those are administrators or working in kind of admin sections.
Yeah, it's top heavy.
Phenomenal.
You know?
Yeah.
Whose wages are hugely more than
for the managers and
frontline staff.
Yeah,
definitely.
I don't know.
It's like most branches of the civil service. It's the people at the top have 10 times the wage of the people at the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, people at the bottom are struggling to get by.
Yeah.
Where the people at the top, it's like lottery money.
That's a very good point, because you know the way aren't public service workers, and they all kind of then lumped into the one, if you like,
agreement type of thing.
Yeah, do you know it? And that nobody that people aren't making the differentiation between people on lower pay in the public service and the people who are on really outrageous money. Do you know? And I'm not talking about politicians for once. You know, I'm talking about kind of civil servants.
Yeah, the top civil servants.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think that differentiation
I know some of them, and one particular man I know, he's a top civil servant, and he's on more money than a TD.
Wow.
Which is.
It is outrageous.
And
it's incredible.
And there's hundreds of them who earn that sort of money at his level. You know?
Yeah, you see, so when they say that, you know, public service wages should be cut, it's those type of people we're talking about. It's not the people on the ground who are working in your library or who are, you know, teaching.
But then again,
not
it's
that crew.
the ministers. They have the minister's ear. The ordinary civil servant at the bottom doesn't have the minister's ear.
But that's why Crow Park is the way it is.
Yes,
sure. I mean, that brings it back to the why the Crow Park turned out like it did.
On the topic of health and TDs, after the break, we'll be coming with Mr. Reilly again, but we're going to have to go for an ad break, folks, and we'll be back after this.
I'm Gavin Duffy, and I'm saying watch cavantv.com. It's a great opportunity to see some great programs, and you can watch it all around the globe via the internet and on many platforms. I watch it myself. Great stuff.
Welcome back to Forum Views, your local magazine show on Cavan TV. And remember, folks, if you want to come on Cavan TV or get in contact with us about issues you want on Cavan TV, check us out on cavantv.com or contact us on drumlinmedia@gmail.com. So we're going to be talking about Minister Reilly, and if he's watching and tuned in, I just suggest to you go and make a cup of tea, because for the next few minutes you're not going to be too happy about what we're going to be discussing. So Reilly backer owns site at centre of HSE controversy. Now, it was very strange. It was very interesting. Today the other day I was listening to a local radio station. I'm not going to say which one. It wasn't the main one though. There are more than just the main one. And there was a guy saying he knew the developer, and he was saying no, he's not the kind of guy that would hang out with politicians. And just as I was cutting out the picture of the developer and Mr. James Reilly, which I think we have
to put up on your wall at work.
Exactly, yeah. Put on the dartboard, and there we are. There he is. Now,
this is Seamus Murphy. He's a developer in Balbriggan in this constituency where James Reilly is a deputy.
Have we haven't left the days of cronyism and favours.
Here we have the site was chosen after Minister took office. The deal was sealed in just 3 months. This is in relation to the allocation of a site that was owned by Seamus Murphy and that was basically appointed, if you like, as a location for a primary care unit.
Well,
so besides jumping up the queue for the
I think from 142nd to
15
was
or
it
something?
32 altogether, so up to 32nd or something
If,
like that. Originally it was supposed to be 20.
was an Olympian, we would all be saying it was on drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
But not just one, but two.
Yeah.
Primary health care in this constituency.
Yeah.
So
like one is careless and two is
yes.
You see, as well, under question should be what criteria Dr. Reilly used for it, and I think we have a doctor speaks. We use this criteria, or maybe we need a second opinion, which is the next one.
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of second opinions, and they don't go his way.
Yeah. But
there's
oh,
where are we gone? Where are we gone?
We're above your head there. We'll get there.
Major technical malfunction.
And there's the second opinion, or we use this criteria. It just seems like there's a certain arrogance and just within 3 months of him taking up his post. Obviously, the transparency that was advocated by the party was just gone within 3 months in this man's mind.
Well, he made a statement there some months ago when he was asked about the critical, but the criticisms were being levelled against him, and the statement he made shows how arrogant he is.
Yeah.
When he said, "I'm the minister. I'll do what I want."
Yeah.
It's my decision.
Yeah.
He wasn't taking anybody's account, and
I thought that was a turning point for him.
Yeah.
In lots of ways, because up until then, didn't people they had faith that he was the man, he was the angry opposition spokesman. He'd been shouting and roaring from across the floor.
He was the doctor who knew it from the ground.
Knew it from that's exactly what
and
I'm
that's what he portrayed himself as. I'm a doctor, I know how much my patients suffer, etc., etc. And then as soon as he gets in, it just seems to be, I will do what's good for my patients, but by bumping them from 142
I must say,
to 39.
I've always been an advocate of that
meritocracy.
People who
know
become, say, the Minister for Agriculture should have a farming background. Not
that's
somebody
what
who's
they do
a plumber
in the
becoming.
US.
Okay, he's a doctor who became Minister of Health. That's a bit more logical than somebody who's a teacher becoming Minister of Agriculture.
But maybe it's not necessarily his background in this case, it's the content of his character, that in a true, instead of pining towards his medical profession, he's pined towards his political profession and just decided to stroke politics. He's decided to bring his Balbriggan care centre up the list.
I think he's probably a businessman, doctor, TD, or businessman, TD, doctor in that order. I think he's more of a businessman than he is a doctor. Because the wealth he has accumulated
But then, I mean, people are entitled to be wealthy. You know, you can have wealthy people in there as well as less well-off people.
But not at
it's not necessarily
not at
about
the cost
their
of the
wealth.
102 primary healthcare
Yeah,
possibilities ahead of that list.
It's the people who missed out in his decision making. I suppose in lots of ways, he's the minister. Are we happy? You want somebody who's decisive in there in a lot of ways. But not necessarily we agree
decisive
with
in
the
the
decision.
wrong direction.
He is I was going to say he is decisive because he brought in a couple of consultants and went beyond their pay cap.
He has more advisors than any of the rest of them.
And broke the pay cap on consultants with them.
From
he's one of a number who have
150,000
broken the
up
pay
to
cap.
200,000, over 200,000.
Yeah.
But the unapologetic nature, the arrogance that has come in since that turning point.
I think that was
identified.
that interview that you named was it. I think that's when he began to lose people a good bit.
Yeah. Well, thinking about the Taoiseach Enda Kenny, let's see what he may have to say. This government is united in full support for Minister Reilly and
You see him more in the background there.
Yeah.
That's about the height of that one, I'd say.
Yeah.
All right.
So, keeping slightly with health, new rules to force up health insurance by €200 per family from January onwards. And interesting.
There's a good clip of Daniel's desk as well, I see.
I like cutting out pieces. Yeah, there we go. There's my desk.
Yeah.
Stare at it hard enough.
Is there coffee stains on that desk? You think you would have cleaned it off before you photographed it? God, you want to watch that.
We can't afford cleaners.
Oh, boo.
So what's the story with this? This is...
Well, this is your baby. You roll with it. You're the one who was thumping here earlier about health insurance.
Well, I mean, it's
that
just
such a rip-off.
Again, it just seems that health insurance is something that is supposed to back you up, but it's the entire health system of this country seems to be just a mess, a complete mess, and health insurance is starting to get dragged into that as well.
But then again, there was a report in the paper some months back that one of again, the minister's babies was to increase health insurance, make it more popular, and to drive people away from public health towards private health. Because he was in the process of building nursing homes, for instance, and
there is a long-standing policy there. I mean, which would go back to Mary Harney and go back to all of the, in a long time. But particularly, if I remember Mary Harney, she did a lot of work in relation to kind of trying to work with the private health company, private health insurance companies. So to make health insurance something that more people were able to afford,
affordable, and
now
it's gone. I mean, I have private health insurance, but it went up drastically this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it went up 3 times in price from what it was when I first took it out.
Yeah.
And they had to change the type of policy to try and bring it back down again to something they could afford. I'd say most people are cancelling their policies
That's
altogether.
What I was going to say. A lot of people are just pulling out of it altogether, and I don't mean having said that, I don't mean taking their chances with the public health service, because I mean, you'll go in there and it's fine. I think fear is what drives a lot of people into private health insurance in the first place, because they have so little faith in in the public service. You know.
When you read about how many people are lying on trolleys.
There is no guarantee that if you go in there waving your health insurance form that you're not going to be lying on a trolley.
But you have a better chance of getting a bed.
You probably
or you might get a more comfortable trolley.
You might get a cushion on the trolley. Maybe a pillow, one pillow to get you through it.
But maybe there's other ways we can save some money. Ministers could forego their pensions, possibly.
Yes, indeed.
178,000 saved by ministers foregoing pensions out of a pot of 4.1
This was the
million
ministers,
euros,
including I think our local deputy Brendan Smith. He was one of the TDs who forwent his pension, if that's the right word. This is basically from the last tranche, the last government, isn't it? And this is the money. They had an option to give up your old pension if you still had a job.
But it's just, it's something that the reason why I chose this story is because do you do it for the money, or is it patriotism that you get involved in politics? And you know, if you do, you know, if you're earning a lot of money throughout your career as a politician, and when you hit your pension days, do you really need it?
Sure, you could hit your pension days at like 42.
42,
That's right.
yeah, and
Happy
keep it for
days,
life.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
I have another 20 years to go.
Well, we have a few of the
Yeah.
politicians here, so who have we got first? There's
Albert
Albert
Reynolds,
Reynolds.
his
And
Banking
So
almost
Albert is
100,000.
raking in 100,000, the guts of 100,000 a year. Sure, it's grand.
yeah.
That's
Fair
obscene.
dues,
Do you
Joe.
think he can afford health insurance?
I'd
on
say
that?
Albert can, yeah.
Because like it's kind of follows on from last
Yeah.
week's one that people cannot afford
Who else have we
to
got?
pay into.
Yeah.
John Bruton.
Oh.
Yeah.
I have to
Similarly.
say, I was a little bit surprised at the John Bruton one because, you know, he's currently the head of the IFSC. If maybe I just haven't got that title 100% right, but it's something I think he's the head of the IFSC. And, you know, there he is raking in, 60-something grand a year on his pension. And he kind of comes across as sort of, 91, I beg your pardon, Dave is shouting in my ear.
Allegedly 99.
But it's just, you always kind of have this impression of him as sort of one of the good guys, if you
Yeah.
like.
No, I never got that impression.
No.
No, I think that
Well,
the pensions are obscene.
But there we
They
have
really are.
one pension.
There's
Is that justifiable there, for example? What do you think?
No, absolutely not. In fact, he should be paying that money back and fines for the mess he's put the country into.
He's not the only one. This has been
they-
a long,
but they should
ongoing process.
all be paying that money in.
You think
They should be, you know.
There we have it. We have single-handedly now sorted out the economic crisis. Just get the politics.
Do you think their pension should be penalised for promises broken? You know,
Yes.
Well,
They
that's
should be.
never going
They
to.
should be charged.
That'd be great. We'd never have to pay a political pension
Well, I mean,
again.
like, you know, it's like, okay, I'll give you an example.
Fraud.
I started a job, and the job contract has a JD. It's got a job description. It's got a spec. So if I have so and so points that I have to fulfill, if I don't fulfill those points, I'm going to be penalised because I'm not doing my work. I'm not doing my job. So if a politician gets hired based on what he says, so he's setting out his job description for the 4 years, then you know that person should forego a certain amount of pay if they're not fulfilling certain promises.
But that's almost every job in the country works on the same auspices. The teachers, builder, somebody digging a hole in the road.
Yeah.
If the hole's not dug quick enough,
Yeah.
or it's not
you'll
dug
have better
properly,
chance getting rid of a builder than
you're
you will of a
gone
teacher
and
now.
bring in another. But I mean, politicians, they make a mess of the country, and everybody suffers. It's not just somebody walking past falls into the
But then
pothole.
in
Yeah.
election,
It's
then
everybody in the
we live in
country
a
suffers.
democracy. People can vote them out.
There's no such thing as democracy.
Hmm?
There's no such thing as democracy.
Yeah,
Oh.
That's leading down another road.
There's no such thing as democracy.
Well, you don't agree with the government that's in. Try and change it.
Well, I mean, sure, I
You
get my
can't.
chance. We'll all get our chance. It's not that I don't agree with them, but you know, we'll all get
But
our
is it
chance.
not a case of Henry Ford politics that you can have any
Yeah,
car you want
probably
as long as
Yes.
it's black?
Yeah.
You know, you can have any politician you want, but the policies are all the same.
Or they'll have elections in Russia and China, as long as you vote for the Communist Party.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, well, and the way it used to be during the Stalinist
Yeah.
era,
yeah.
you could vote for different parties, but they were all Communist parties.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's democracy.
So is it kind of likewise in Ireland? You can vote for any party you want as long as you know, but they're all failures of politics at leading the
Well, I
country.
mean, they
They
all
are.
have very centrist and right or centrist kind of views, policies. There's no kind of left wing, no matter what Labour say. There's no
No.
real left
No.
wing
Well,
party,
certainly
and
Labour's track
the
record
United
lately,
Left
yeah.
Alliance is crumbling before our eyes. They're the ones that do have.
Well, look, we're going to have to move on to our next story because time is pressing. Quins were to receive millions in severance payments. And I love this. Data recovered from Russian computers, court told. I have this image in my head. There's dingy little computer forensic people going into
I think it
computers.
was busted up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they were watching Taken.
Do you think that's what it was? Yeah.
When he picked up the bits of the mobile phone and picked out the
There
wee
he
card
is.
Oh, yes.
and
yeah.
then got all the photographs.
Yeah. Do you think they
That's-
just
Yeah,
rang
but
up Liam
The
Neeson
IVRC kind of clicked in.
Yes.
There's something for here
and said
for us.
they kidnapped Liam Neeson's daughter and said, if you find
Yeah.
Quinn's millions, we'll return
Yeah.
her. That's it. That's Taken 2. Don't bother going to
That's
cinema,
sorted.
folks. That's it.
God.
Okay, well, I mean, is there really? There's not much more we can really say on that, but apart from the fact that, well, there's quite a few million there.
Where to go from here?
Again,
is the next thing. You have.
Yeah.
But again, where are them? I mean, I've always been an admirer of Sean Quinn for the way he has built himself up from nothing into the businessman he is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an admirer, but I must say, what he has achieved since he reached those dizzy heights and come back down again, I think he just bit off more than he could chew. And you've only got the banks word about these millions that are in Russian accounts and so on. So.
Yeah, and you see, like, there is a question about the amount of stuff that's been fed into the media at this stage. You know, like, both sides now are seriously, they're playing the media game, if you like. So the information that's coming out it's quite controlled, and it's, you know, it's still difficult to get to the bottom of this this saga.
It is.
Well, let's talk about another businessman, another Irish businessman. Michael O'Leary's Aer Lingus.
He's going to send us all to the States for 99 €.
99 quid. Wow, is it
I
a
don't think
Flintstones plane?
we'll be getting any food.
No food. You might
No.
have to pay for your toilets, and it's standing space only, maybe.
There's no standing space now. You've made that bit up.
Okay, all right. So, what do you think?
Would you fly to America for €99 with Ryanair?
€99? I can't see it covering them.
Or here you go. Do you think it's fair that one man or that one company could monopolise all air?
No, I don't believe it.
Okay.
Because...
Is this kind of going back to the old Pan Am days in America where one company tried to dominate the entire...
Yeah, well, it's the same with any business. If you corner the whole market and then you can set the standards whatever way you want, you can blackmail people into... it's okay saying now that I can fly them to New York for €99.
But like, he has single-handedly transformed the airline industry, if you like, in this country.
Yeah, he's the only one making a profit.
Yeah, but do you know, like, even in terms of the London route, I mean, we've seen it time and time again, people recount like, what he did for that London route. Yeah. You know, I mean, he completely transformed
it's great if you don't mind discomfort, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bus, basically. It's a bus trip in the air. Yeah. Essentially.
It is.
But it only takes an hour and a half or something getting to London, but...
Yeah. 6 hours, I don't know.
I wouldn't want to be...
6 hours
Although
on a bus.
I wouldn't be too heartbroken about missing out on airplane food for 6 hours. I have to live with that.
And just bring your toothbrush in.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't afford any luggage.
Let's move on to a more positive story. Well, a positive story. 57,000 jobless joined back to work programs, which is... well, I mean, it's a good thing that people are not just kind of sitting and stagnating and stuff. There is kind of back to work programs. There's plenty of programs out there.
Well, I'd say some of them are being kicked back onto these back to work programs as well. You know, which is another aspect of them. And you know, you have to say, are they all going into programs that are suitable for them and suitable for their skills? Or is it just so they can take them off the live register? But again,
I think it's more take them off the live register.
Better figures to the Troika at the end of the year.
But take them off, like the TOOS program that was set up, it's random selection. So you don't know who you're getting or what you're getting from the Department of Social Protection.
Is this in
nationally?
Yeah. Oh, really?
So it's completely random selection. You can't match the TOOS worker with the community group that you want to match them with. It is just a practice of getting them off the live register. Definitely.
Well,
but there's people on that live register who have been on it. I know people personally who have been on it for the last 25, 30 years. And all through the Celtic Tiger, this still didn't work. Yeah. Even when there was plenty of work there, they still...
But I do know people now who have been on it and who are being shunted off it and who are genuinely, you know, genuinely unemployed. I don't mean that you can't be genuinely unemployed, but do you know what I mean? Who lost their jobs, you know, fought their own.
They were willing to work, they had a job and the job was gone.
And now they've been basically pushed on to some of these schemes, and while they're happy enough to be doing schemes, it's just that they're not going into the schemes that are best for them, and they just kind of, you know, think it's a waste of their time. That's the problem.
I know people who have been put into those schemes, like doing computers, and they've absolutely no interest in computers. They don't want to work with computers. But it was the only opening for them, and
Mm.
and they were forced to either take a job with FOSS or whatever,
Yeah.
working with computers, or it would stop your dole.
Mm.
You know, and that was it. They had to take it. They go on this training course then for several months, and they don't want to do it. There's no interest in it.
Yeah. I think that's what that undermines the whole process. Like the idea of the back to work programs, they're fantastic. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
They're a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. But if you know, if we're not providing, or these people aren't provided with the right bridges, well then where are they going to go? They're just going to go back to
Would not make more sense if some young person find out what they want to do.
Yeah.
If there are people there who want to learn computers, and send them into it.
Yeah.
Rather than just picking them, as you were saying, you're just picking the numbers.
Random selection.
Yeah, I mean that just sounds totally bizarre.
Well, we have to move on to our next story. The tree hugger in me chose this story. Plans to sell rights to quilcher trees criticised. 50 to 80 years of harvesting rights are to be sold off to private companies.
Right, yeah.
I don't know.
Are we literally selling the family
Birthright.
silver
Yeah.
bit by bit? No, it is. I don't mean only, but it is only the harvesting rights. We're not actually selling the wood.
Yeah.
The woods.
Yeah.
Sure, we're not.
Oh, no. But the harvesting rights are still. Who determines the harvesting rights? But the government who's selling the harvesting rights to private investors. So the more you increase the harvesting capacity over the 50, 80 years, the more you increase the revenue from what you've sold.
Yeah.
So, there's no way to there's no cap to put on it. There's been no indication that there'll be a cap on how much that company can harvest. That's the real...
The thing is,
How many trees can possibly grow?
I have to say the prime, just to note, it's not in the story, but just to note also that the main company of interest in this is Helvetica, and Helvetica is on its board is Bertie Hearn.
Yes, this has been an ongoing. This has been an issue all along.
the thing is to
Pure coincidence.
if that we're literally giving this wood away or selling it very cheap, then they process it into timber for building and whatever furniture, and we buy it back again.
Isn't that
at
what happens?
at a massive?
That's exactly what will happen.
Yeah. And this happened in the
Isn't that
in
not
the
what we're
80s.
doing with the Corrib gas fields, for example? Like, I mean, it's just,
Well, we just gave that away.
I thought, isn't there
That's
something
right.
in the Constitution about all of our natural resources belong to the Irish people?
No, it doesn't.
But
That
the
doesn't
government has.
there's a
Government sorted
small
that
print.
Constitution doesn't.
Look, we're on to another story that we're going to an ad break. No, we're going to an ad break, and we'll be back after this, folks. Welcome back to Forum Views with myself, Daniel Downey, and Sheila Reilly, who's on with me today. And we have Joe McAtackney from Cavan, and we're going through the stories at a breakneck speed. We will get to the end today. And so what's up next?
The next one we have is this is a tax penalty for religious people in Germany. Catholics could be denied communion if they do not pay an 8% income tax, according to this piece. Daniel got this. Where did you dig this out of?
Star Spot.
Oh, super.
Thanks to the Daily Star.
Daily Star. A bishop's decree said that all those who fail to pay an extra 8% on their income tax will no longer be considered a Catholic. All Germans registered as Catholics, Protestants or Jews pay an 8% religious tax on their annual bill.
I just thought we should promote this as a potential new tax for the Irish government to put in place. Brilliant.
I was
Church.
just going to say, don't publicise that.
What do you think?
Don't tell them. Don't
Keep it quiet.
Don't tell them it happens.
Sounded like the one from the ad there. Sounded like the one from the ad.
What do you think about it, Joe?
No, I think it sounds like something that's left over from the Second World War in Germany, when they had a tax on the Jews. It sounds like that.
Well, it's all religious.
It's interesting.
Well, it's
to
mentions 3 religious denominations.
It's interesting to target a tax bracket based on religious belief, isn't it?
Well, what do you say? What if you're non-religious then?
Yeah.
You don't pay?
I don't think you pay
tax?
anything. But by the way, you won't be getting a religious funeral. I don't know what they'll do with you. But according to this, nah.
You have to bury up the fairy fort, the old gods.
I don't know what they're going to do with you if they don't. But I suppose, in lots of ways, look, that's the system that they have and whatever. It's just obviously people aren't paying it. If they were, then we would not be reading this
Sheila,
story.
I know it's the system they have, but this is Germany, which means it might be the system we have soon.
Yes.
It's Germany. It's the driving force of policy in Europe.
Well, this country is
unless
full
the French
of people
can stand
who
up for
call
us.
themselves Catholics. And
I thought we were part of Germany now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I thought we were part of Germany now.
Allegedly. Lost the war and won the peace.
Angela is our leader.
Angela
Merkel. Well, let's move on to our next story. This is the conspiracy story. Gardaí to buy 1 million rounds of ammo. Joe, you were reading this and you said something earlier on interesting about this. What type of ammo are included in this? Or?
No, there's 1 million rounds of 9mm ammunition, which takes, which fits most of their guns.
Now,
but they have also ordered, I think it's 4,000 rounds or 40,000 rounds.
100,000 rounds of 4.6.
4.62, which is armour piercing.
Interesting.
Which can go through flak jackets or armour piercing rounds.
And that's for practice?
No, these are for practice
and for the ERU and for the emergency response.
For the emergency response unit, yeah.
I'm going to go into conspiracy theory mode.
Okay.
Dave, get ready.
We're due at least one. Well, sure, we've managed to get through the whole hour nearly without one.
I know, it's a miracle. Total miracle. But, is this, is this in preparation for putting down the uprising?
Oh,
against the health service?
Against those who might revolt against the government.
There's no more chance of
in West Cavan. In West Cavan.
That's right.
Coming out in their throngs.
That's right. In Bombay.
But they won't get a bus down to demonstrate.
There'll be
that's
thousands
for sure.
of emergency response units converging on Bombay.
Yeah.
and tens of thousands of people waiting at the bus stop to get to the Dáil.
Yes.
That's why they cut the bus routes.
That's obviously why they cut it,
Yeah. Cut the supply lines.
So it's to stop the rising, you think?
Well, it's a huge amount of
Have you noticed the start of the rising? Has there been bubbling undercurrents?
I don't know. You're involved in the media. What's happening?
Nothing. People are giving out. That's all they're doing.
Just hit on something there. I remember one of the first vehicles to be burnt or bombed in the Troubles in the North was a bus going along the Falls Road, and it was petrol bombed. That's why they're taking the buses off.
Because they know the demonstrations are going to hit the buses first.
It's conspiracy theory.
It is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, look, Sheila, I have a story here for you.
Oh, I think
US politicians, Gav, seeing as you've been paying such close attention to the US political stuff.
I haven't managed to take a whole week
Now, we have a few of them there, so please help yourself to reading a few of them out there. Who's a few nice politicians there.
Yeah, we have George Bush. I'll be long gone before some smart person even figures out what happened inside the Oval Office.
This is one of my
Here's
favourites.
Arnie Schwarzenegger.
I think gay marriage is something that should be between a man and a woman.
Clearly.
Yeah,
we have Al Gore. There's a good one here about Al Gore. A zebra does not change its spots.
I love that.
Yeah, there you are. That's a brilliant one. That guy was nearly president.
I thought that
nearly. Only for the hanging chads.
It was the last one, was it? The last one, Joe, you were saying.
Stand up, take a.
A stand-up Chuck, let him see you. The vice presidential candidate writing the Missouri State Senator, Chuck Graham, who is.
He was in a wheelchair in 2008.
Oh,
so
God.
Joe Biden said that Chuck to Chuck Graham, who's a senator and was in a wheelchair. Stand up, Chuck. Let him see you. Super. Oh, he's great.
How do you say that to somebody in a wheelchair that you're having a debate with? That's
And he
incredible.
also is attributed to saying, "Folks, I can tell you, I've known 8 presidents, 3 of them intimately." I love
Brilliant.
it. Oh, you couldn't. Why do you need to make stuff up when you have these guys?
Yes.
It's brilliant.
This is the
But
lead on
I
from
think that all came from
Mitt Romney's.
Romney's
Yes.
wife. His wife was scared in an airplane. And was a fire broke out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
Why
smoke.
can't
She was
you?
choking with the smoke, and he couldn't understand why they couldn't have just opened the window and let the
Yeah.
smoke out
Yeah.
Yes.
at 30,000 feet.
Oh,
Poor
God's
mate, he
sake.
thought he had invented a new sort of airplane.
Have you been following the US election, or have you much interest in
Not,
it, Joe?
not a great deal.
Okay.
Just brief looks now and again. But
And Sheila, did you watch the debate?
I didn't watch the debate. I was obviously looked at the coverage of it afterwards because it was on at 2 a.m. and that was just a bit of a stretch for
Yeah.
me, really. I did have
But
brief contemplation. Will I get
I
up
do
first?
know some people who get their nibbles, get their
Oh, I
coffee,
know,
and stay
yeah.
up, camp up, and watch the debate. Yeah.
Like I'd love to do that, but unfortunately work just doesn't allow.
watching democracy in action.
Well, it's not really watching democracy in
Yeah.
action. It was just, I think it's the way it worked out this week was fantastic for Obama because I know he completely flunked that first debate, but it's the kick in the backside for his campaign. The notion that Romney is just going to hand them this election is not how these type of campaigns work. They turn on literally a pinhead, and Obama has seen that. So he has 2 more debates now. He has a lot of time. If this had happened in his last debate, that would have been a total disaster, but he actually has a lot of time to pick it up and to really kick it in. I think he can do it, but his performance was terrible. He looked grey and old compared, he looked grey in the face even and old compared to Romney, who looked kind of young
Vibrant
and
and-
vibrant. And there's years in the difference. I think Obama is 10 or 15 years younger than him.
The grey bit of the right colour was African American.
He had this hue of greyness.
I know,
do you
yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yes.
just what
He
we
was,
would
uh,
say in
Think Mitt
Mullahorn,
Romney
bet down. He was bet down.
He was bet down, wasn't he?
He was bet down
Think
by the
Mitt
whole
Romney
lot.
maybe paid one of the lighting guys to just dim the lights on Barack Obama a
Well,
little
I
bit.
mean,
or,
yeah, don't you have that famous Nixon debate, where
Oh,
yeah,
did makeup.
yes,
Yeah.
the makeup went all wrong and just he was all sweaty and horrible.
Yeah.
And,
Actually, speaking of Nixon, he's in that selection of quotes,
Oh, is
folks,
he?
and it's the famous, it's not illegal when the president does it.
Oh
that
yeah,
he made to,
politicians have been living by that mantra.
absolutely.
Ever
Absolutely.
since. Yeah, there
Yeah.
are some great.
You can nail me for it later, but
Oh,
not
there's another
now.
one here from Mitt Romney. I love this state. The trees are the right height. Lovely.
Oh,
That's great.
brilliant. I believe in America where millions of Americans believe in an America that's the America millions of Americans believe in. That's the America I love.
That's the next
Well done,
president.
Mitt.
That was Mitt Romney, not Homer Simpson, who said that.
That's the next president.
Yeah, potentially.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Well, look, on
And
that
on that
note,
note-
we're going to... Joe, thanks very much for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much.
And
Thank you for having me.
folks, tune in to us next week. And we'll be back with more riveting stories from national and local and international news from Sheila Reilly. Thank you very much. And myself, Daniel Downey. That's all.